Welcome everyone. My name is Cindy Fazzi, and today I'm going to talk about my novel Multo, but first a little background about myself. So I was born and raised in the Philippines, and I came to this country in 1989. My background is in journalism. I am a former Associated Press reporter, and I have worked as a journalist in the Philippines, in Taiwan, and here in the US. I have a master's degree in journalism from Ohio State University. My last name, Fazzi, in case you're wondering, is not Filipino. I'm married to an Italian American. He's right here. So Multo is my third published novel, but it is my first thriller. I have two other published novels. One is My MacArthur, as June had mentioned. It was published in 2018. It's a historical novel. And the other one is a romance published in 2015. It's called In His Corner, and it was published under my pen name, Vina Arno. So Multo means ghost in Tagalog, and it's about a Filipino American bounty hunter named Domingo who is looking for the only quarry that has ever eluded him, because he's the best in the business. So he's chasing an undocumented biracial Filipina named Monica Reed, who can disappear like a ghost. So Monica is overstaying in the United States because she's looking for her American father, who doesn't know that she exists. Now, the father happens to be an Air Force general. He doesn't want a political scandal, and so he hires Domingo. He wants Domingo to nab Monica and take her to immigration authorities for deportation. So Multo pits a dogged bounty hunter against a desperate woman in hiding. They're compatriots. They're both in the United States in pursuit of the American dream, but their dreams are on collision course. So the word Multo, as used in this novel, refers to three things. It refers to Monica, who's very good at hiding. It refers to undocumented immigrants in general, who are, for the most part, invisible in this country. And third, it also refers to Filipino Americans, whom Fred Cordova, the founding president of FANHS, described as the forgotten Asian Americans. That was the title of his book, published in 1983. So let me tell you what's unique about Multo. The bounty hunter in pop culture is typically portrayed by a white man, whether it's Clint Eastwood, in For a Few Dollars More, or Robert De Niro in Midnight Run, or Dog the Bounty Hunter in reality TV. It's always a white guy. So what's unique about Domingo is that he is the first Filipino American bounty hunter in a novel. And basically, Multo reinvents the bounty hunter trope from the perspective of a brown immigrant. So Domingo is a new kind of hero. He's a keen observer of his environment, and he happens to be a wise ass. He's definitely kick-ass. And unlike Monica, he's actually a naturalized US citizen, so he can afford to make fun of the immigration system. So he's also funny. And also, Domingo is different from other bounty hunters because he specializes in catching criminal undocumented immigrants. The character of Domingo is actually inspired by a news article I read a long time ago in the New York Times about a real bounty hunter who only handles cases involving undocumented immigrants. So I thought that was really fascinating that he had a niche. And so that's where the idea for the character came from. So Multo had a very long publishing journey. I actually wrote the first draft of this book in 1995. It was my very first attempt to write fiction, and I was a green card holder at that time. I was waiting for my US citizenship, and so I was very preoccupied with all things immigration. And it took me 2 years to write the novel because I had a day job and I was just writing fiction on the side. So after 2 years, I had this book which was universally rejected by literary agents, and they all said the same thing. They said, this book is unsellable, this is uncommercial. Nobody wants to read about a Filipino protagonist, and nobody wants to read about immigration. And I'm like, ouch. And so I set the novel aside, I wrote other books, and that's why 2 of my other manuscripts got published first. So in the original version of the book, the story was told from the perspective of Monica, the undocumented immigrant. It took many, many years before it dawned on me, what if I tell this story from the point of view of the bounty hunter, who was at the time a secondary character. And so that's what I did. I completely rewrote it in 2008 and then again in 2017, this time from the perspective of the bounty hunter. So once the narrator of the book changed, it organically became a thriller because Domingo is all about the hunt, is all about the chase. And once the book became a thriller, it became commercial. It became sellable. My agent sold this book to Agora Books last year, 27 years after the book was first conceived. And Multo's long journey to publication, unfortunately, is very common for writers of color like myself, because even though 42% of the US population are people of color, 95% of novels published in the US are written by white authors. And similarly, 76% of publishing employees, book reviewers, and literary agents, these are the gatekeepers of publishing, 76% are white. So I understand that in the end, readers are going to buy books that are compelling. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if the book was written by white or brown or black writer. I totally understand that. But what I'm saying is that it's very important that we have a wide array of books available in the marketplace, that we publish books by writers of all colors and all voices, because that access to diverse writing was missing all these years. And it's only today that the situation is finally changing, and very slowly at that. And so writers like myself are finally getting published. So when people ask me, why did you write this novel? I hope to accomplish 2 things. Number 1 is I really just want to introduce Filipino American characters to mainstream American readers. I would like to add to the Filipino American literature, because there are very few Filipinos in American novels, Filipino characters in novels today. And second, I just want to share a glimpse of the most common struggles and aspirations of recent immigrants, regardless of status, whether they're documented or legal. For the brown and black immigrant, it usually boils down to that basic need for respect and acceptance, because they are told so many times, in so many ways, that they don't belong in America. Okay. So before we get into Q&A, I'm going to read very briefly an excerpt from chapter 1 of Multo, which introduces Domingo, his character. So his job as a bounty hunter, there's a lot of waiting around and stalking people. And whenever that happens, he writes his thoughts in a little notepad. That's why in the cover there's a little pen and notepad. So in this excerpt that I'm about to read, that's what he's doing. He's writing while he's waiting for his next assignment, which is to catch Monica Reed for the third time in a span of about 2 decades. So Monica is this one assignment that keeps coming back to haunt him like a ghost. Chapter 1, the present. What it means to be undocumented in America. If you have neither the birth certificate nor the passport to prove you belong in the US of A, you're undocumented, aka illegal. You have a visa, lucky, but if you stay a second longer than the date stamped on it, you're illegal. Americans have many names for you: undocumented immigrant, overstaying tourist, illegal alien, migrant, deportable, removable, wetback, loser, parasite, criminal. Frankly, those names are inadequate. They can't even begin to describe your situation. For this reason, I've invented my own special terms. First, multo, meaning ghost in Filipino. You know why? Undocumented immigrants, like ghosts, can be invisible. Some people can see them as clearly as a little kid in The Sixth Sense can see Bruce Willis. Others simply can't or won't. Ghosts can appear or disappear, just like immigrants on the run. Second, desperate hopefuls. That's what I call you. You desperately cling to the hope of belonging in this country someday. Maybe you've been deported before, but you came back. Most likely you'll get kicked out again. That won't stop you from trying again and again, because desperate hopefuls never quit. Plain hope comes with a prayer, a sigh, and nothing more. It's a housebroken puppy, while desperate hope is a rabid dog. It knows no bounds and heeds no one. How do I know this? I'm an immigrant like you. I'm a bail enforcement agent who catches criminal undocumented immigrants. I'm the best in the business, which means I'm your worst nightmare, or your best friend if you listen to every damn word I say. Domingo stared at his handwriting, then at his wristwatch. 5 minutes before 9 and already scorching. He had parked the rental car outside the gated mansion because he'd come too early. At least he'd made the most of it. A few more paragraphs of his handbook or memoir or whatever it was going to be. He wasn't sure yet, but he'd made up his mind to write everything he knew about illegals. Not just a diary, but something worth reading and keeping, like a self-help book or an underground guide that would be passed around. He wrote in a little notepad because he couldn't get used to writing on his smartphone. He was 40, old school, stubborn, and married to no one and nothing but his old habits. Time to get to work. He shoved the pad and pen inside the glove compartment, started the car, and drove toward the gate. The property located outside of Columbus, Ohio, was secluded. He pushed the button on the intercom. "This is Domingo. I have a 9 o'clock appointment with Mrs. Reed." One call from the supermarket chain heiress had sent him scrambling to Ohio. Money worked in not so mysterious ways. "Domingo," a woman's voice crackled. Sunday, it's Sunday, he corrected himself. Americanizing his name seemed the right thing to do in 1998 when he got his much coveted US citizenship. Today it sounded stupid, but he was stuck with it, just as Coke was stuck with its cocaine-inspired brand. Oh, Sunday, the bounty hunter, right? I'm a bail enforcement agent licensed in 8 states, he said. As a law enforcement professional, he deserved the same respect as a cop or a sheriff's deputy. He worked just as hard and got in harm's way just as much as those guys. And that's it. If you have any questions, we'll just chat or I'll answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, Cindy, for being here, for your work. I appreciate your perseverance through this journey and getting this book out after the 90s and up until now. And so clearly you've had to make some modifications. And through that process, I'm wondering, how far away did you stray away from your original vision for this story? And what did you learn from changing the vantage point to the male bounty hunter?
So actually, that's a really good question because it is exactly the same story. And that's what I learned as a writer, how important it is to be adaptable. Because if I had stuck to the original version, which the literary agents were telling me, this book is very heavy-handed. It was a literary novel, which when you're young, you're like, well, I want to be a literary novelist, but they're saying this is unsellable. And so when I rewrote it, it's exactly the same story. I realized it's just that the point of view is so important because he has different interests, but it's the same story about Monica, this poor young woman who is basically a victim of circumstances, like she had no control about who her father is, for example. She came to the States thinking that this was her American dream, but it didn't turn out that way. And so I can honestly tell you, if I didn't rewrite, if I hadn't rewritten it, and if I hadn't embraced the thriller genre, I would still be unpublished today. Now, some writers, especially literary writers, kind of look down, I don't know if that's the right word, on genre because it's commercial. But the thing is, it's commercial because people read it and they actually buy thrillers, romance. These are the genre books: romance, science fiction, suspense, horror. They actually sell. And as a writer, especially as a writer of color, in the end, what mattered to me was to be able to tell this story. And okay, it's not a literary novel, but it's a thriller, but I still get to tell the same story. And I think in the end, that's what's important. Because like I said, there are very few Filipino characters in literature, in contemporary literature, so.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, for allowing us to listen to you in person and also for giving us insights into your book. I'm overwhelmed because I know Monica's in my work in the Filipino community. I also know Domingo's. So I see it not as a thriller, but a slice of life. Real hardcore life. We've had, well, you are in Stockton, and this is a home of all kinds of immigration, the 4 waves, including the new immigrants that have come here. And I'm one of those. I wasn't born in the USA, I was born in the Philippines. So my heart is for someone who went through the whole immigration process. And I kind of understand what you have to do. And then what you have to do once you're here
Right.
a total change of your perspective and life. So I'm thinking about Monica, and I want to pull her out of your novel. I have not read it, truth be told, because I'm about to buy one. But I'm listening to you. I read snippets about it, the way you introduced the idea to us. I want to pull out Monica's character because there's a historical fact behind her of the colonized years of America that may be tied to the MacArthur era. And no fault of her own, she comes down here for family reunification. Not so much because this is the land of plenty. So there are many Monicas, not just in my life, but the way our Filipino American history is, once laid out, you will find spots of Monica coming out in the different narratives that come out of different people. And it's important from the next perspective, which I value, which is a woman's perspective, or a Filipina's perspective, that the Monica will emerge from her experience as a stronger person. And we always want to emphasize that we have built-in strength. This resilience is in our DNA as Filipinos, so never mind the word resilience. We got it. It's running in our bloodline right now. I want the resilience to show up. I want to show that in a Monica character. And I could make a movie out of, hello, anybody listening? I have so many people that I'm going to point to this Multo and, spin the Monica character and find a Filipina hero out of her. She's not a bad girl, she's not a bad guy in this thriller. She is a character to reckon with down the road. So that's Monica. And I'm loving Domingo because I wrote something here. Is Domingo corruptible as a character, or is he astute?
So actually, Domingo, he has a really strong ethic. He considers himself in the same level as a cop and a sheriff's deputy. He is a law enforcement professional. And so he apprehends criminal undocumented immigrants. And I should clarify that because that can be misunderstood. So he doesn't just pick up undocumented immigrants. He picks up undocumented immigrants who have committed a lot more serious crimes than just coming illegally. Most of them, they killed or they robbed, and they actually have a warrant, for their arrest. Those are the types of criminals that he apprehends, and that's why he has a code of honor as well, that his goal in life is to make the word immigrant respectable and honorable. So if you're an undocumented immigrant and you're a drug dealer or you killed somebody, Domingo will kick your ass. He'd be the first to get you out of this country because he does believe that, which is true, the majority of immigrants are, law-abiding people, but there's always going to be that bad apple, and he is after that bad apple, and he really wants the word immigrant to mean something positive. And so, without giving any spoilers, the two of them, right? One undocumented immigrant, and he is naturalized citizen, and he has to apprehend them. You can see that there's going to be a journey for Domingo as well, because Monica is not the type of criminal that he normally arrests. His only crime is that his rich white father wanted her out of the country. Okay, so Domingo is going to realize that he's also being used by this powerful white man. So in answer to your question, that's the thing. Domingo is kind of a class by himself, and that's why I say he's a new kind of hero. He's not a cop, and he's not, he's not a soldier, but he's in law enforcement. What's interesting I learned about bounty hunting is that bail is actually a constitutional right. And that's why we have bounty hunters and we have bail enforcement. It's in the 8th Amendment that, you know, when you're arrested and you have the right to come up with bail so that you can be free prior to your court date. But if you violate the terms of that bail, like you don't show up in your court date, then that's when a bounty hunter will come chasing you. Typically, I mean, really, when there's they call them bail jumper or skip. When somebody doesn't show up for their court date, it should really be the cop or the sheriff's deputy. They have a warrant. But normally they don't do that, especially if it's a small case and they're nonviolent. They won't. So the bail bonds agencies have larger there is larger reason and motivation for them to go after these people because they put up the money, the bail bond. And so if the person just disappears, the bail bond agent will lose that money. And so even though the cops should really be the one chasing the skip, it's usually the bounty hunter that has to work harder because his boss or the agency will lose the money. So anyway, so that's another thing that's not commonly understood by readers, that the legal background and for bounty hunters, where their authority comes from. So it comes from that.
I learned that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I needed to know a little bit more about the occupation that Domingo is in.
Yeah, the other thing that's very interesting with bounty hunting is there are only 2 countries in the world that allow bounty hunting. Guess what they are? The United States and its former colony, the Philippines. Because bounty hunting is uniquely American. The profession can be traced back to the days, you know, in the Western frontier, right? And so Europe or anywhere else in the world, they don't have that. So it's only in the US, and of course, because Philippines was a colony, it's also legal in the Philippines. So that's another thing. It's a very, it's a very American trope in literature.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do have 101 other questions. My mind is spinning.
Okay, any other comments or questions? That was really, really very informative. It sounds very exciting.
Thank you so much.
And we're so pleased and proud and feel really privileged to have you come and share all of this information with us.
Thank you.
So thank you, and thank you very much for attending today.
Thank you.